In the heart of history, a man lived who boldly broke the boundaries of knowledge and transformed the world with his scientific vision. Al-Biruni, a genius beyond his time. He was not just a scientist, but a discoverer of the secrets of the universe, a traveler of cultures, and a bridge between East and West. From the precise calculation of Earth's size to astronomical discoveries that shaped modern science centuries later, Biruni, with a dynamic and curious mind, left behind a world of knowledge that still illuminates the path of scientists. In this video, we will take an exciting journey into the life, travels, and achievements of this great man, to discover how a person could, with perseverance, precision, and love for science, immortalize his name in history. Get ready to discover a story beyond time. Abu Reyhan Muhammad ibn Ahmad al-Biruni, one of the greatest scientists and scholars of the Islamic world in the Middle Ages, was born in 363–973 AD in a city called Birun, located in Greater Khorasan, now part of Razavi Khorasan, Iran. His life was full of scientific effort, precise research, and intellectual adventures that continue to inspire scientists and researchers worldwide, centuries after his death. He grew up in his youth in an environment full of great cultural and scientific transformations, a time when the Islamic world had reached the peak of its scientific and cultural flourishing, and scholars in various fields such as mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, geography, and medicine had left great works behind. Al-Biruni grew up in such a context and from the very beginning had a deep love for knowledge and discovering the unknown. Al-Biruni's father, who was himself a scholar and interested in sciences, was his first teacher. Alongside basic religious and literary education, Al-Biruni became familiar from childhood with concepts like mathematics and astronomy. It is said that his interest and talent in these sciences were such that as a child, he could learn many of the basic principles better than adults. In his adolescence, Al-Biruni met great teachers including Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Ahmad Zarai, one of the prominent scientists of the time, and studied various sciences under their supervision. It was during this period that his curious mind was drawn to studying the works of Greek, Indian, and Iranian scholars. One of Biruni's outstanding features was his mastery of several languages: Persian, Arabic, Syriac, Hebrew, Greek, Latin, and especially Sanskrit, through which he could access ancient Indian scientific and philosophical texts. This linguistic skill was a gateway to the vast world of diverse knowledge and one of the main reasons for his scientific success. Young Biruni was never limited to a specific scientific field. He was a mathematician, astronomer, geographer, historian, linguist, and philosopher. This multidisciplinarity caused him to write many books and articles in various fields throughout his life that are still studied in universities and scientific centers. In his early youth, Al-Biruni with his father to the Khwarezm region, where later the most important part of his scientific life took place. In Khwarezm, he met one of the greatest rulers of the time, Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni, and entered his court. This connection provided him with many opportunities for research and scientific travels. In the early 11th century AD, when Sultan Mahmud Ghaznavi ruled Khwarezm, Al-Biruni was appointed as the court's astronomer, mathematician, and scientist. This position not only allowed him to access numerous scientific resources, but also paved the way for one of his most important scientific journeys to India. Al-Biruni traveled to India in 430 AH, 1038 AD. This scientific and research journey turned him into one of the most prominent figures in the history of science. India, with its ancient culture and knowledge, was like a fresh window for him, which until then few from the Islamic world had visited. One of Biruni's great achievements in India was his mastery of Sanskrit and deep study of Indian texts. He not only studied Indian philosophical and religious works, but also explored various sciences such as mathematics, astronomy, geography, and ancient Indian medicine. One of Biruni's outstanding traits was his careful attention to detail and repetition of experiments. He believed that no theory should be accepted without evidence and multiple tests. This approach made him one of the pioneers of empirical science, a progress that was highly regarded in the West centuries later. Besides astronomy and mathematics, Al-Biruni was extensively active in other scientific fields. He was one of the first scientists to conduct precise geographical studies. Using computational methods, he estimated the size of the Earth and distances between various points, results that remained valid for centuries. In medicine, Biruni had extensive knowledge, and some of his books were dedicated to studying traditional medicines and treatments. He also wrote numerous works in history, detailing the lives of civilizations and various cultures. Despite all his scientific honors, Al-Biruni's life was full of hardships and challenges. He lived in a time when wars and political conflicts sometimes hindered scientific activities. However, with perseverance and strong will, he continued his path and deepened his work. Over the years, with increasing scientific experience, Biruni became one of the brightest stars in the world of science, in the Islamic world and beyond. Despite all political and social ups and downs of his era, he always remained committed to scientific ideals and truth. But the final period of his life was as full of achievements and historical importance as his youth and middle years. Al-Biruni's influence was not limited to the geographical and cultural borders of the Islamic world. In later centuries, His works were translated into different languages and profoundly influenced scientists in Europe and Asia. Some Western scholars consider Biruni one of the pioneers of the modern scientific method, because he built his scientific theories based on observation, measurement, and testing. Biruni's precise calculations in measuring Earth's diameter, positions of stars and planets, and explaining astronomica. Biruni's books about Earth size and cartography became the foundation for many later geographical studies. Al-Biruni, a man who at every moment of his life sought to discover the secrets of the world, was not just a scientist. He was a true explorer of the unknown frontiers of nature and culture. This trait distinguished him from many of his contemporaries and turned his works into a unique treasure that still illuminates the path of science today. Discovering the true size of the Earth. One of Biruni's most famous and astonishing achievements was the precise measurement of Earth's diameter and circumference. Before him, great scientists like Eratosthenes had addressed this issue, but Biruni's measurement accuracy under the limited conditions of his time was astonishing. In India, Biruni, using trigonometric methods and astronomical observations, was able to estimate the size of the Earth with very little error. He performed these calculations using mountain heights, horizon viewing angles, and geographic distances. This work was done in an era without advanced technologies like satellites, showcasing his extraordinary mathematical and scientific skills. Al-Biruni not only calculated the size of the Earth accurately, but also made great innovations in astronomy. He determined the Earth's orbit around the Sun and the length of the solar year with incredible precision, and he studied and critiqued various calendars of his time. One interesting aspect of his work was his attention to time differences and geographic longitude differences between various places on Earth. Biruni was the first person to measure the longitudinal difference between locations precisely, thus laying the foundations of modern geography. Biruni's works, especially after being translated into Latin and European languages during the Middle Ages and Renaissance, had a strong influence on Western scientists. Figures such as Galileo, Kepler, and Newton, founders of modern physics and astronomy, were inspired by his scientific approach and empirical method. Biruni's method of combining various fields of knowledge and having a comprehensive view of scientific issues remains one of the key principles in scientific research today. He was the first to question old knowledge rather than accepting it blindly, examining and correcting it through experiments and observations. Al-Biruni passed away in 440 AH, 1048 AD. Although some historical sources mention his death as late as 443 AH, he certainly passed away in the first half of the 11th century AD. At the time of his death, he was a well-known and respected figure among scholars, rulers, and the public. In his final days, Biruni continued researching and writing, completing numerous scientific works. It is said that even in his last moments, his mind was engaged in astronomical calculations and solving scientific problems, showing his endless love for knowledge. The life of Al-Biruni is the story of a man who, with love for knowledge and truth, expanded the boundaries of the known world. He showed that science goes beyond geographical, cultural, and religious borders, and can be a bridge to better understanding humanity and the world around us. Al-Biruni was not only a man of the past, but also a guiding light for the future. His life story, full of passion, effort, and endless love for discovering truth, reminds us that science is never limited by time or place. He showed that with curiosity and perseverance, unknown boundaries can be broken and new horizons of knowledge opened. Biruni's scientific legacy remains alive in today's research and inspires thousands of new scientists and explorers. So every time we look at the sky or measure the Earth's diameter, we must remember that this great journey began with the steady steps of a man who valued truth above all. Let us, inspired by Al-Biruni, move relentlessly on the path of science and knowledge and make the world a better place.